Hi, my name is Jason Edelman. We're going to talk about the keys to success for deploying network automation within an enterprise. I'm the founder and CTO of a company called cont'd. I'm a former network engineer, spent my time doing routing, switching, security, and wireless for about 15 years or so. And several years ago, I made the shift into network automation, APIs, programmability, and the like. Now, at cont'd, myself along with the company, we spend our time doing network automation day to day. We help our clients strategize, architect, and build solutions to really take advantage of network automation in a greater context, to really help improve network operations end to end and really drive out the manual inefficiencies that have been there for the past few decades within the network domain. Now, I'll share some experiences with you today over the next 25 minutes with lessons learned, general traits to be aware of, and really the keys to success as you get started on your network automation journey. If we break down that of what we're going to cover in this session, there's really four key areas. The first one is we are going to spend a few minutes talking about why network automation. Why is it important right now to where we are in the state of networking, in the state of network automation? We're going to break down what is network automation. This is paramount to really understand as we think about things like tools and technologies and processes. We have to really take a step back, ask ourselves, do we really understand what network automation is? From there, we'll look at architecture. It's really important that as you're going down the path of network automation, to be thinking architecture first. So we'll take a look at what that really means in the grand scheme of things within a journey to start adopting and deploying network automation. Finally, we will look at keys to success. We'll look at these keys and how they relate to getting started and deploying network automation within an enterprise setting and enterprise context. So why network automation? Right, again, this is key to understand about why to get started. The truth is, if we take a step back, there's little to no automation that's happening today. Now keep that in the back of your mind as we go through these next several slides. But of course, when you automate, there's all these great things that are going to happen. There's enhanced security, predictability, speed, reliability, all these great things. Now, the truth is, speed is always going to be there, not as important for different use cases and different environments, but reliability is there. Do you want to go on vacation? Do you want to go on holiday? Do you want to go on PTO? Sure. Do you want to have new team members that just started working with you to be able to do the same tasks that you do? Do you want to empower them more easily? Think about all the documentation that exists today. Think about what if all of that was essentially automated and codified? It really lowers the barrier to entry. That allows scale to happen at a greater rate for which it happens today when all the tasks happen manually. Think about changes. Changes literally take weeks to months right now. It's not about the technology. Technology is the easier part, but it's the processes behind making those changes that have to be analyzed as well. And automation helps adopt newer processes to take advantage, both working together to really make an impact on network operations today. When we think about that, you have to realize that the existing processes that are in place today were literally built with humans in mind. That being said, can a human fat finger a change? Can they connect to the wrong device with the right change or the right device with the wrong change? If humans are doing something, there needs to be more risk mitigation. There needs to be more rollout plans, rollback plans, things like that have to be taken into consideration for every change versus thinking about automation to help and then to have all those same things automated to be able to work at a more rapid pace while increasing the predictability and reliability along the way. So the truth is we have really been working harder and not smarter as an industry. So as we go through this presentation today, really think through, this bottom question is, would your change management processes be any different today if you in fact had solid tooling in place If you had network automation, platforms, tools, technologies, the right mindset, the right culture, the right skill sets, would that have any impact on process? We're going to talk a lot about tools in this session. We're going to talk a lot about optimized process. Now, using both together is going to be key, but think about it in the context of just your current processes. How many processes exist today because humans are making changes or humans are performing the task? And would they be any different if you trusted network automation to do what humans are currently doing? And as I alluded to earlier, the majority of changes, over 90% of changes, are happening manual today. So it's really a no-brainer when you ask the question, why network automation? Or why should you get started down this path? It's important to look at cloud. As network automation comes to fruition across the industry, we can learn a lot from looking at cloud. We have Amazon, Google, and Microsoft shown on this slide, the three big cloud providers. Now, right now, there is a lot of focus to go cloud first, even cloud native. When you analyze application requirements, can they go into the cloud? Should they go on-prem, in a data center, in a colo, wherever it might be? The truth is, it's a great question to ask, and cloud first is admirable in terms of where resources can go. Right? Cloud first on-prem, private cloud, cloud first public cloud, multi-cloud, hybrid cloud, all great. However, the truth is that cloud does not solve workflow challenges. Think about requests coming in. Think about the requests for an application, the requests for a VM, the requests for a load balancer, a VIP, policy, security groups, all of these things. The requests coming in, the approval process along the way is not considered going cloud first. Cloud first might simplify some provisioning along the way, but it doesn't really consider and solve workflow challenges, nonetheless, to think about how it really impacts on-prem networks. Right? The title of our talk today had networking in the title. We're talking about network automation. Networks exist on-prem. We have wireless networks, we have LANs, we have WANs, we have security networks, DMZs, the list goes on. However, if we take this cloud-first approach, let's start thinking about it in the context of automation first. Because there's a cloud-first approach and a cloud-native approach happening today with containerization, microservices, elasticity, and those other areas, the truth is because they're modern and cloud-first, cloud-native, that automation tools in the DevOps space really play nicely with cloud. They play nicely with cloud resources more so than with on-prem resources. But they are two distinct parallel trends that occur even when you look at it in the context of cloud. So we have to switch it completely. We have to really just think automation first is really where we want to be. We need to be such that we're thinking any system, any network, anywhere, managed with an automation first mindset, with an automation first paradigm. So we're thinking about leveraging, if it's playbooks, runbooks, cookbooks, scripts, command line tools, self-service portals, whatever it might be, we need to think about it automation first that also considers the workflow of which the requester is initiating across any system, including networks that exist both on premises and inside a given cloud. So what's possible? We talk about why network automation. We look at an automation first mindset, but what's possible? We can start to shift our mindset thinking automation first with workflow in mind. Well, first up, we can talk about self-service portals. Again, no brainer when it comes to cloud. It's not new, but it's really, really new when we think about it in the context of network resources and consuming network automation. It could be load balancer changes, firewall changes, could be interface changes, maybe bouncing a port. All of these things could be processed and executed, initiated from self-service portal. Now, the truth is we can have ITSM platforms like ServiceNow shown here. We can also have self-service chat ops. This could be WebEx Teams. It could be Microsoft Teams. It could be Slack. It really doesn't matter which chat platform it is, but chat has been amazing to be able to see the adoption of network automation at a faster rate because you can enable other teams to now get the data they need. This last screenshot in the bottom right was just getting data, read-only self-service via chat ops, or it could be the middle three, requesting a VLAN, requesting a cloud resource, right? These types of interfaces, such as chat ops, it could be requesting cloud, getting data from the cloud, or it could be on-prem, right? So again, any location, but having a uniform way to consume these resources is paramount. And enhanced visibility. What we're seeing here are dashboards and panels. It's important to realize that these aren't new when we think about it in the context of utilization, memory, CPU, bandwidth, and so on. But if we really zoom in here and take a closer look at some of these stats that we're tracking, it's about automation jobs. How many jobs were ran? How many were done manually? How many chat commands were executed? Time saved, dollars saved, plenty of ways to slice and dice this. But think about visibility into network automation, or more broadly, visibility into network management and network operations to really get a good feel for what's happening today. Even cross-referencing this with active tickets and closed tickets within your ITSM platform. This is great data to have because it's going to let you know if the investment is required and investment is continued along the way in terms of network automation, processes, platforms, tools, technology, education, enablement, and so on. So what is network automation? All right, we talk about why network automation. We look at what's possible. But what is it? As we've seen already in some screenshots, there's mentions of tools. There were higher level interface tools, the presentation layer. Here, we oftentimes in network automation right away talk about a tool that's connecting to a device as the most important thing. The truth is it's not. Tools are not the most important thing, especially as you get started down this path. We can't talk about tools first as we start this journey down enterprise network automation. The two things that we want to start talking about, this is two of many, are workflows and data. As we alluded to, cloud doesn't solve workflow challenges. So we have to consider the workflows across the board. Why is this network change being asked? Who's asking this? When this change is being made, what is the workflow? Do you connect to a device, issue a command, get data, based on that data, issue another command, based on that data, go into a spreadsheet, get data out, then add more commands to the device, or then hand it off to another team to go and make their change? We have to understand the full workflow end to end. Even as I was stating that, I was saying the word data quite a bit. We have to understand data, where it comes from. If you're going to be adding a new BGP peer, if you're going to be creating a new VLAN, how about assigning an IP address to an interface? Where does that IP address come from? Where do the subnet and prefix come from? Is it a Google spreadsheet, Excel file, IP address management? Do you have all three of those? Which one's the most accurate? We need good quality data that should define the intent of the network. Workflows and data is the foundation of network automation. It's where you should start if you're going down the path of a network automation journey. From there, we have infrastructure, of course, and we have people, process, and technology that are all required to truly adopt and make an impact to an organization with respect to network automation. People have to be enabled. Processes have to be optimized. Technology, 100% is required, but we can see tools is only one subset of what's required. And of course, this falls under all the network towers that exist from ops, engineering, and architecture. What about approaches to network automation? Very common these days, even within Interop. We had panels in the Network Automation Summit about buying tools, open source, and so on. But if we look at the approaches to network automation, you can, of course, buy commercial tools. You can build them. You can use free and open source tools. You might opt to have a hybrid approach that uses a combination of those three. However, remember, it's not about the tools, right? It's not about the approach to picking tools. It's the broader approach. And the broader approach, as we've alluded to, it's being aware that it's about workflows and data. Start documenting workflows, documenting data sources, getting the process right. Only then to take advantage of a variety of tools under the covers that very well may be commercial, that are purchased, open source, hybrid, and the like. The truth is, if you go down this path and think about workflows and data, there's going to be lots of integration points that need to be glued together, stitched together. When we think about multiple data sources, if you were to connect to a networking device today and look at its configuration file, the data required to populate that configuration is likely coming from several different places. So that needs to be aggregated and distributed to be able to fed back into a configuration template to be deployed to a device. Workflows might go between platforms and tools. If you're deploying a new workflow or a workflow that's a VPN service, could be a cloud service, there could be multiple features that are automated on a networking device and multiple systems that are also automated. This might span controller environments and SD-WAN or in the data center in a campus environment. You might have broader policy, which we might need higher level network automation to then instantiate different configurations and different policies across different systems. As we think about this, take a step back. Again, we're thinking about recapping now, network automation, why it's important, what it is, the approaches that could be considered from a tooling perspective, but remembering that it's more about workflows and data early on than essentially it is about tools. As you progress in this journey, it is also key to think about architecture. It is so common today to think about tools and power tools, or think about quick wins, to think about writing a script that's going to help you in that change window tomorrow night or on the weekend or next week. Those things are required. They should be great items to put in a backlog that would be automated by a platform that has a true enterprise architecture under the covers. So what we're sharing here is an architecture. We use this quite commonly in Network to Code. It starts with, number one, defining strategy and architecture. This is quite common, quite obvious. Now, we look at number two, it's about crafting that platform. And we have subcomponents under there, things like source of truth, telemetry, automation, orchestration, and so on. This platform is a platform that which any workflow should be automated by within the networking domain. And that is number three, automated workflows. This platform shouldn't exist for the sake of existing. It exists to automate workflows in a structured manner. Workflows, we go back to maybe verifying if firewall policy exists, ensuring wireless RF is in the proper state, bouncing a port, adding a VLAN, removing a VLAN, adding a VIP, adding a server to a pool. These are workflows that occur in the networking domain. These workflows would then be executed on a platform in which the platform adheres to a reference architecture. From there's integration points. We have integration points twice in this slide. We have on the left side, we have integrations from the presentation layer. This is how do you want to expose network automation to the greater team, greater teams that might be your internal customers. Is it through self-service portals? We've already seen some of those. It could be chat, it could be custom portals, it could be general ops tools. But really consider how you want to expose networking resources or network automation possibilities to the greater team. It doesn't help anybody if we have network automation deployed and it's not used. We also have integrations on the right-hand side. These integrations happen adding more devices into a given environment or onboarding a platform that isn't yet supported by the platform. Meaning if it's SD-WAN, data center, SDN solutions, firewalls, load balancers, the truth is with the platform that is first built might not have everything turnkey out of the box. So in terms of the architecture, you have to consider how do you add a new device type? How do you add a new hardware type, as an example, or new operating system type? There needs to be modularity and integration points to be able to do that across the board. A bit more advanced is delivery pipelines, number 5. When you have a solid architecture defined, you have a solid platform built adhering to that architecture, these pipelines are to certify this is all going to continuously work together. Meaning when you have changes in any piece of the platform or changes of the devices, changes in the presentation layer, how do you automate the delivery of this in terms of deployment and automated testing to ensure that if any one piece changes, that network automation is going to continue to operate as expected. Now, if we take a look at that platform and zoom in a little bit, we can see what we mean by platform architecture and the components inside the platform that we alluded to already with things like telemetry and source of truth. If you look at this slide on the bottom right, we see telemetry and analytics and the observed state. There's no doubt about it. In order to have a holistic network automation strategy and architecture, we have to consider how do we obtain real-time state, or where does that go? And so this could be through SNMP, it could be syslog, it could be traps, it could be streaming telemetry. Right, so key point here is telemetry. We're not referring to just streaming telemetry, that we need to understand the current state of the network operationally, things like routes, neighbors, MAC table, ARC table, but at the same time, the real-time configuration on the device as well. Then we'll have orchestration system, right? Very well might be orchestrating between multiple systems, multiple domain managers it could be, right? So we'll need a system to be able to overlay on top to be able to manage the given environment, which will communicate to automation, engines, and so forth that'll own execution to the device. Now, the truth is this could be the same platform, it could be different platforms, but it's great to be able to decouple them and think about them logically along the way as well. Then we have in the middle towards the bottom, source of truth and desired state. And we've had many sessions in the Network Automation Summit previously this week to dive into data, the importance of data management for network automation. But this is all about defining the state of which the network should be operating in. This is the desired state operationally and configuration-wise, as we alluded to from the observed state. Ultimately, these could be diffed then to see how accurate is the network operating to what's expected of the network. And of course, on top, we have what we alluded to earlier as the presentation layer, right? Many ways to interface with the network automation system overall. But architecturally, start thinking about orchestration automation differently and start thinking about data differently, meaning both the real-time and what's been intended on the device. The truth is, in networking deployments today, the only truth that exists is the show configuration on the device itself. We have to change that to decouple what should be defined in a source of truth and what is coming from the device. If we think about the tasks that happen with a given architecture, we think about workflows. So we can start to layer those in within a diagram like this. We have infrastructure, we have our key components, we have our intended source of truth, we have execution and orchestration, we have collectors and observed state, as we alluded to as well. We have presentation layer on top. The truth is, oftentimes we conflate many of these concepts. So here we're breaking them down with tasks and workflows and solutions. And this is important to think about As you go on this journey, you think about developing an architecture, think about developing a design and engineered solution for the architecture. But it's important to always understand what are the architectural requirements given a specific task, workflow, and solution. And then also, what are the presentation layer requirements for that solution? And as it maps down ultimately to the functional building blocks that we have within a given architecture. So we talked about a lot. We talked about what is network automation, why network automation. We alluded to some key concepts around architecture and framework and platform as well. Let's take a minute now to really summarize keys to success. These have all been points that we've alluded to along the way as well. First one should be obvious by now. Understand the workflows first. That has to come first before you start going down the path of picking tools, maybe even creating an RFP to put out to bid for a network automation tool. The truth is there's going to be many tools that are required, and it starts with understanding workflows, and it starts with documenting those workflows, understanding every user interaction. Every time somebody gets a piece of data from their head or from a spreadsheet, those have to be documented to take advantage of the tooling in an operational efficient manner. The same goes for data. We have to document the data just as much as we're documenting the workflow, and they go hand in hand to really have a successful enterprise network automation strategy. Investments have to be made as well. I think we always understand investments have to be made from a perspective of tooling, but the same thing is true for process and people. Now, it is way broader than code. Right now, there's a lot of talks around network engineers learning to develop and code in Python and DevOps tools and so on and so forth. But it's way more than ever just writing Python code. Well, first off, you may never actually have to learn to write large scripts. Maybe it's a few lines of code here and there as an example. This will depend on platform of choice, tool of choice. But the main point is, in this space, this intersection of software development, DevOps, and networking, meaning it's not about code because there's an ecosystem of tools that are required to even leverage code properly. There's things like text editors. Are you now writing code on Linux systems? Are you versioning your code in a GitHub repository or Git repository like GitHub, Bitbucket, and so on? Are you writing automated tests for your code? Are you automating those tests with a CI platform like a Travis, a Jenkins, a Circle CI? As you can see, it's less about code, but more about the overall ecosystem and the impact that can have in the networking domain. It's a journey. I think in terms of being successful, you have to realize that it is a total journey to get to where you want to go. If you think about it as happening in days to weeks, you're probably thinking about it as if you're somebody who's writing power tools for your changes that are important tomorrow night, next weekend, the next month, and so on. But it is a journey when you think about the perspective of having a true platform that other people on the team can use at will and have those exposed to other stakeholders through self-service portals, have ITSM platforms integrated, have chatbots integrated, and so on. And really have to take a step back along the way to evaluate the current organization. Is it set up for success? Maybe it's not org structure, but maybe it's allocation of time to adopt network automation. We haven't really seen it work too well when it's 10%, 20%, 30% of somebody's time to go spearhead network automation efforts. Early on, there has to be dedicated personnel and dedicated projects, right? There should be a tighter scope around workflows and around data, but having dedicated personnel to spearhead the efforts of network automation early on is truly key and paramount to success, to getting it off the ground. And you'll need even more people as it continues to get legs, especially within a global enterprise organization. Same is true if it's a small to mid-size org as well, but just looking at the scale and order of magnitude, that usually no matter how small an environment is, it's still a lot of work to really start to adopt and take advantage of network automation overall. As we start to close things out, you have to remember, as we just talked about, network automation is a journey. I think we've talked about that quite a bit. But also remember to think about agile and waterfall methodologies. I didn't touch upon it a lot in this talk, but there's definitely a good blend of both that makes sense in the journey toward successful enterprise network automation. But we have talked a lot about workflows and data. So again, those are critical to be aware of, and they should for sure outweigh diving into tools earlier on in the journey. You have to understand your workflows, have to understand your data and data sources, and the integration points between them to really start to deploy an optimized process, network automation technology down the road. Finally, get to know the people in the organization that are interested in network automation. It might not be the best network engineer making the shift with newer skills. You might find junior, even mid-level network engineers that really have an affinity and really have the desire to go down this path. And really important to understand who those people are. That being said, thank you so much. I had a great pleasure to be part of Interop this year. From the two-day Network Automation Summit earlier in the week to this session, thought it was great overall. And feel free to reach out. I'm available at my email address is shown below. My Calendly is available, and I'm also at the conference right now. So feel free to track me down and shoot me an IM or shoot me an email. And I'm more than happy to talk through your network automation journey. Thanks again.